Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, based on the location where you are. We are very excited that you have joined today's webinar, and we are especially excited to say that actually more than 400 marketing and CX professionals signed up for this event all around the world. So it's great to see that so many people are interested in the emotional experience topic, and since we have a little bit time pressure, so we will get started with the introductions already now, and what else can I say? I can see that people are joining every second right now. So welcome all, And first, a little bit housekeeping. That our presenter, our award-winning expert today is Jaakko Männistö. So it's great to have you here. We'll let you speak soon as well. I am Eveli Kaasikko. I am the marketing director of Feedbackly. That is one of the sponsors of this event. And we also have at the end of the webinar Q&A section. And please, if you have any questions, then please write them to the questions section, which is just right under the live webinar window, or on the, which side is it? Left side, right? So and we'll take all these questions in the end. And also please notice that this webinar is recorded, and the recording will be sent to you also afterward. Now, first, this webinar is organized by CX Forum. CX Forum is a global community and network of CX and marketing professionals with a passion to share the knowledge and create better experiences all around the world. And this webinar is sponsored by two of the CX Forum sponsors, Feedbackly and CarePage. So CarePage is a customer experience software for health and aged care, disability and home care, and retirement businesses. And they are giving you a full picture of your business inside out. They offer a 360-degree view of both CX and EX in one comprehensive platform. And shortly also about Feedbackly. Feedbackly is a plug-and-play CXM, which is the customer experience management platform that helps you improve your customer experience throughout your entire customer journey. And it's done in 3 simple steps. We help you collect feedback online and offline, analyze your entire customer journey, and then we help you take action as well. You find those hot leads, minimize churn, drive loyalty. And in addition to the software, we also offer tools, methods, services, consultation, everything you need to rock with your CX program. And now, before I free the stage for Jaakko, a quick note that already now that all the participants of this webinar will have a unique chance to also have a 30-minute free CX assessment meeting with Jaakko. And we'll send a link also afterward, but you can already now take action in the offer section, which is on the left side here, or right under under this video. So there is a link that you can click and book the meeting right away, or you can also do it later. We will send you the link. And now I'm so happy to invite here Jaakko to tell you more about emotional experience. And Jaakko is a CEO of Feedbackly. He's also a co-founder of CX Forum. He has won so many awards that I think the list would go too long to list them all right now. But I mean, he knows what he's doing. So, and yeah, please, the founder of Emotional Experience Framework, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Emily. I think that right now everyone can hear me and maybe even see me and see my screen here. So, Emily, thank you for those kind words of yours. I would say as a Finnish person, this is always a tough part when somebody is giving you a little bit of credit, but I'll try to live with that. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm very honored that there's more than 400 people joining this webinar session. And as Emily mentioned, people are coming all over the world globally, and I'm happy to see that people are interested in emotional experience and the methodologies that we're talking about today. So as we have a time constraint, let's go forward, and so that we guys have more time to ask as well. And as Emily mentioned, I'd be more than happy and honored to have a one-to-one sessions as well. So please remember to book them as quickly as possible. There's a little bit of limitation on the seats, so please be quick if you are interested in learning more about either emotional experience, or for me to look at your customer journey measurement, or customer experience in general, and you might have any kind of questions. It's a free of charge, so no strings attached. Now, jumping into the topic of today, emotional experience is a kind of like a new wave that I've been working with a couple of years now already. There have been a couple of movements globally ongoing with the KPIs and things on how things would work, especially on the new wave of CX measurement. And we start the story from way back from history. Now, everybody understands and knows that customer experience as a concept is fairly new, but customer feedback in a sense is very old. And I just love the example of this, the oldest documented customer complaint known to man from more than 3,800 years ago, starting with a clay tablet, man complaining to his merchant on a wrong grade of delivery of copper ore. And the point from here is, of course, this is just a cool piece of story, but what I'm trying to make a point here is that if that was the first step where we came from, it has been actually fairly recent when we've been starting to organize ourselves from the experience and understanding and KPI perspective for customer experience. Now, it has been pretty much the last 50 years when we came from the clay template to customer satisfaction scores up until NPS, and one of the most recent one that people use most, companies use most, is a customer effort score, which we do have a 2.0 of coming out from that as well, or already came out. The point here would be that we have taken, even faster than the development of customer experience and the KPIs, we have come from product-driven companies and product-driven markets into the experience economy that what we are today. And this has changed pretty much anything or everything, essentially. We've come from unit sales to value pricing. We don't do branding. We need to understand feelings. We're not selling products. We should be solving problems to our customers. and all the way when we're trying to understand and trying to develop businesses, we have multiple touch points with the customers, and pretty much anyone in the market is not able to be without multiple touch points with the customer. And those businesses are very rare if you only have one way to communicate and do business with your customer. So the development has been, during the past 50 years, has been really, really fast. And this is one of my favorite examples, and I think everybody knows and understands this quite well, is that what has happened to that small and tiny coffee bean in just a short period of time, that we could basically go in and have that coffee bean, then do it, roast it, and have exactly the same product, drink it, have the energy coming out from that coffee, and in the end we took care of that. We took care of the problem. It is solved. We got the energy, we got the coffee, and we should be happy about that. Paying a fraction of what we are willing to pay today. But in the end, one of the biggest companies in the world is selling us experiences of coffee, and at the same time spells our name incorrect to the coffee cup. This is a part of experience. And if you haven't checked before, go into Google and check why they do that. But it's a very, very good and interesting analysis what can be found. But this just tells us that we're willing to pay hundreds and thousands of times in value from when we're looking at a simple product like a coffee bean, in versus or in relation to the fact that we pay 100 times more for an experience on a coffee house, and everything you get around it. So what we kind of like noticed is that world has changed tremendously since the 70s, 80s, 90s in a very short period of time. And COVID is pushing that even faster and further and further and further. And every day, every week, every month, we can notice that things are differently from a digitalization perspective and from a experience perspective. Now, what we also notice is that we're still measuring 1990s. We're still using customer satisfaction scores, which is a very easy and simple and straightforward way of measuring customer experience. But at the same time, when we're doing that in only one touch point. So let's say after purchase or when somebody's leaving the store. So essentially 90% of companies is measuring 10% of what impacts their CX and their bottom line. And that sounds crazy. And that sounds even absurd to say that, okay, you guys are missing that 90%, because that is a frighteningly big number. So we kind of wanted to sit down and ask that what are the CX professionals globally doing for this? And we set up a survey and a research to actually do that. What are the CX professionals doing who are on the very best part of this process? And what we learned is that actually, the winners on that category, there's by the way, it's coming out in about a month, I would say, the report. So I think we can share the report for all of you guys as well, on the CX outlook. But what we noticed is that there are a couple of things that drives the winners out from the, let's say, losers on the CX market, and who has been able to grow on during the pandemic, for example. And the answer essentially is that the customer and the companies who have been building customer equity already beforehand. And now the companies who are starting to waken up to that fact that we have to invest in our customer experience, they're already late. And the point of what I'm trying to say here is that it's a numbers game. It's a time game, essentially. It's not going to happen overnight. You're going to get some wins for sure in a week, in a month. But essentially, it's going to be a long ball. And then there are two specific things what we recognize from that group. And the first one, finally to say it secondly, but firstly, they understand that they need to cater the entire customer journey. pre-purchase, on-purchase, post-purchase, and loyalty phase all the way through. And there might be multiple. And one of the main points is that when I'm usually mapping out touch points with a certain customer, even with the simplest way of doing business, they usually have hundreds of touch points. And when they first came in, they said, okay, we have 2 touch points, we sell, and then we deliver. Those are the touch points. But in reality, there are hundreds. And of course, you would need to try to map out the most important one, which has the most impact on your business. And this is pretty straightforward because your customer doesn't care about your organizational silos. They just don't care. It is your job to get rid of them and get them a smooth experience from the entire customer journey that you have. So first of all, they cater the entire customer journey.
Hey,
Jakob,
quick comment. Could you please
yes,
make the slides bigger, somehow full screen or?
I can.
Perfect.
Maybe
Thank
this
you
one?
so much.
Very good. Very good. And don't worry, this will be sent to everyone afterwards. So you get to have them, all the material as you see it. And the second of all, first, the most important part is that the very top players, they have understood that actually it is the emotions of the customer and the feelings of the customer which is driving the most business value. And this is the part that actually goes beyond customer satisfaction, customer effort score, NPS, and any other metric that is considered as being one of the mainstreams on customer experience. And the reason is that these are measuring something very specific. Customer effort score, of course, and how effortless is it to you make business with us? NPS, would you recommend us? So it is only a fraction of a part. They have an indication and they have a solid base on showing the value and connection to the value of the business and growth of the business, but essentially they just cover a small part. So this is a huge realization, and the hard part essentially is that emotions are not linear. So we kind of come into a problem here. So what we kind of started to do and try to think about, how could we take something so complex into a business environment, into a customer environment, and start upping up that understanding of the emotions. So we went through a ton of theory, wrote a couple of books about it, and tried to find out a way to actually simplify the base for emotional experience and try to drive a KPI out of it that would be valuable for the businesses. Now, it is based on a couple of theories from the very basic politics wheel of emotions. It is a emotion classification theory, and also the discrete emotion theory by Paul Ekman. And the second part for the analysis part, which is first one was how to collect, and this one is to analyze, is a very, very good clusterization theory of hierarchy of emotional value. And all of these, setups and links and everything, I'll share to you guys at the same time with the material, so you guys can go deep and dive and look. But beside of the theoretical framework, we do still have a problem that we have to take those and turn them into a business perspective. So there was quite a lot of things that we had to do. So what we did is actually took that about 50 million feedbacks and responses, what we've collected with Feedbackly, and started to use those to match that customer feedback with the feelings and how we should map them, and what kind of values and what kind of value drivers actually negative emotions has, positive emotions have, and we actually we're able to map and create values for those clusters so that we can actually predict how much value a certain emotion is driving to your business. Now, this has become the end game of that on how to measure an index. And again, we're kind of in a problematic way that it is not linear. So we had to come like a circle motion way of collecting that feedback and putting that into action from there. So customer would be selecting the best between the emotion that best describes their state of emotion regarding that specific service, what you're offering to them. So we need to always be specific on what the emotion is, either or the customer is not able to kind of like identify the emotion behind it. Secondly, of course, rarely we feel like grief, like or mortified, like what we would feel on a let's say in a funeral. So that's something that we have to take into consideration, modeling that, because if we would take a raw model of wheel of emotions, for example, it would have very strong feelings of for example, a close by passing away, which is not usually the case, what we would feel in a normal business environment. We can feel very angry, we can feel very disappointed, but very rarely, that emotion would be in play, and most probably people wouldn't usually go for it. And then the third part is, of course, that emotion should be, being able to adjust in a certain way, because of course for different cultures, different words could mean different things. For example, in my native language, in Finnish, there's a lot of words that we basically had to go dig so deep when we were trying to translate them from English, and from the early research that we used, because the emotions were mapped in a very different way. So of course there need to be room for adjustment, but the main point is that it would need to, stay under certain rules, and that's more than something that I'm happy to help. Now, what comes out from here is essentially an emotional value index that is created to show the impact of the emotions to your business. This is just I just picked up a couple of examples on what we've been doing, testing measurement and testing the EVI. Now, but if we were going to a very, very practical level, using the clusterization model and using the data behind our amount of feedback and data, we've been able to pretty much map out the value for each cluster and how much they drive business value in your business. Now, the tricky part here is, of course, you would need to understand which are the emotions that you want to put on your customer, because it would not most probably be the same for everyone. So, for example, somebody would like to spark excitement or trust over maybe for them being pleased or surprised. But this is basically the basic model, and the most important is that you would just need to change the way of thinking a little bit here. And out from here, we could find two ways of looking at emotional index value, aka EVI. It is an index number starting base value with a 0 from minus 100 to 100. So it is an easy to understand, as it is a benchmarkable, not benchmarkable, but it is the same structure as an NPS is. So it's a little bit easier to take into, put in place and to understand the number. So basically, the idea, I'm just jumping a couple of over and then going back, is that not actually saying that if you're doing good or bad, but when you have decided what is the emotion that you want to bring out with your customers, so let's say excitement, emotional value index is actually showing you how well are you doing with that. So you would need to first decide what is the emotion that drives your strategy the best, and then go after that emotion and use EVI to measure that emotion. So it is a totally different way of, or reverse way of thinking things, because basically everybody is saying that, the customer is in the heart of our business, and then they are measuring customer satisfaction score, which is, a fine way to do it, but it is not actually bringing that customer into that strategy and what you're doing. It's not driving that. So emotional experience and emotional value index is doing the exact other way. So you decide what is the emotion, and then you use emotional experience to actually do that or to measure it. Now, the good thing about EVI is that you can use it on every level of measuring customer experience, starting from the individual level, more usually on, I would say, in a little bit more B2B market, but on the customer journey and strategic level, but also on the touch point, a very transactional level, you can use EVI, both in attract side of customer journey and then retain side of that customer journey. And of course, that loyalty phase going forward. So it is a very usable, very easy to understand going forward. Then just a piece of reminder: we're going to be launching the methodology in just about a couple of weeks. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to emotionalvalueindex.com and go check it out, and we'll notify you. So coming back as a quick recap is that the question for you basically is that which emotion your business, not my business, not someone else's, your business needs to be able to attach to the customer, and how do you want to make the customer feel? Because this might be different. And if we're taking the coffee example, Starbucks or anything else between a very high luxury or high level coffee shop where you want people to stay, wants to evoke different kind of feelings than the one on the corner that serves you the coffee in the morning that you would just go pick and run to your work, where actually in many ways you would like them to be pretty indifferent about the experience, but it's just quick and efficient and easy. So it is a different business from the emotional strategy perspective. And if you would use the customer satisfaction scores or NPS for the same matter, it would give a totally different kind of results, even though that both of those businesses are actually driving the customer exactly to the heart of their business and fulfilling the expectations of the customer and even going beyond. But the target is different, so that's why it is very important to cater to the strategy. Now, I know that the time was fairly limited for a matter of very long, but at this point, I think I am about on time, Emily. So let's jump to a couple of Q&As, and I would think that, Emily, you have a couple of questions already there, at least I saw. So
yes,
please go ahead.
We have a bunch of really good questions. Thank you everyone for writing them. If anything comes mind, still you have time to write them and just write them to the comments or to the questions section. And before we jump to the questions, then just a quick reminder that in the offer section here, you can also, you have a straight link to book a meeting with Jaakko right away as well if you wish to grab this opportunity, take this opportunity right now. And now, let's see what we have for what people have asked. We have here many great questions. Mm-hmm. First, just to confirm, was it so that we'll send a presentation also afterward? Yes. Right, very good. Then a customer survey may tell you what customers are feeling, but how is it going to tell you the emotion you should seek to evoke?
Okay, I pinpointed. A customer survey may tell you what customers are feeling, but how is it going to tell you the emotion you need to evoke? Okay, so it's a very good question. Thank you for that. So emotional experience and essentially here the emotional value index is a tool to actually measure if you're getting towards that emotion that you are willing to or you want to evoke. So of course, as a tool and as a measurement, it is not the means to an end, in a sense. That emotion should come from your strategical work. And I'll go back to the example what I was using. So basically, if your strategy is to try to create an excellent experience on people staying on your coffee shop, versus if you're trying to sell as much as takeaway as possible. So essentially, you would think, and it would be logical, that you are not trying to evoke same kind of emotions for both of these customers. Now, and that's the point. So, I'm sorry to say, but I'm not able to, just quickly say that, okay, you should always try to, evoke this specific emotion. It should be attached to your business. But of course, there are rules of the more powerful the emotion is, and it actually, you can check on the hierarchy of the emotions that I'll be sharing after this. And so the higher it is on the hierarchy, the more strong it is and more impact it has to your business. So basically, you should always go, the higher the better. So if we're talking about real joy, happiness, please, trust, and excitement in a right way. So of course, those are the most, being the best ways. And a funny point here is that many very, very good marketers are actually going for joy and trust in a way that, from a theoretical perspective, those are actually meant to be or described to be part of love. So of course, it is hard to say love. It's a strong word, but it's the same emotional basis on that. So it should come from your strategy. And then you can use emotional experience to kind of like evaluate if you are going towards those goals. So it's a little bit more individual, even though that is a very standardized kind of like model, which you can use the same question, same selection of emotions that are on the emotion, the wheel, basically, where you can measure it. Very good.
Very good. Thanks. So the next question would be that, do you or would you use emotional experience framework for B2B as well?
Very good. Yeah, no, okay, I got that. So basically, it is the same story for it. Maybe Italy, I'll just share my screen again. I know which part you kind of like referred to. So usually when we're talking about and we're looking at the levels of measuring customer experience, we're talking about very individual level, then a strategic level for a higher and bigger KPIs, such as EVI essentially is, and then a very transactional point where in one certain touch point there's a lot of people going through. So it's a different way of looking at it. And here I refer to that usually business to business is a little bit more customer relationship and individual driven. And the point was that emotional experience is also very capable of measuring B2B success. And it can be even stronger and better on that sense, because in B2B, you would have a more closer relationship usually with the customer. And it's not necessarily, but usually, and it has a more direct impact into your business. So basically, if you lose one to B2B customer, it's usually more valuable to your business than one consumer customer. And there is less kind of like fluctuation between customers and companies in B2B in general. So actually, it would bring you, I would say, even more value in B2B if you have sufficient volume on B2B customers. But it goes a little bit the same way as any other CX measurement from between B2B and B2C. Is that if you have 10 customers on business to business, it is really hard to find a KPI that actually tells you from a customer experience perspective where you would get enough data to make it, valuable enough. And there, I would always suggest that you just, pick up a phone, call them, and ask them how things are going, how they feel, and so forth and so forth. So it mainly depends on the volume of the business more than the nature of the business, I would say at that point. Very good. I would go for the next question directly. I think maybe Emily was dropped out, but then the next question was essentially. Oh, okay. Yeah, I actually picked up the next one already. So how to select the emotions that you want to go after? Again, a very good question. Basically, based on the model, those emotions are very much already selected based on the fact that the model would be used in customer perspective. So like I mentioned, it is not basically normal to feel strong grief, for example, or very, very strong sadness on customer relationships. So basically those are coming from the model, and then calculated the KPI based on those models. But there might be some variability between, because for example, from a cultural perspective, not those emotions have the same names. Like I mentioned, in Finnish, we have different kind of emotions, and it might have the same word, but it might mean a completely different thing. So you will need to adjust that based on your culture. But it's still an easy discussion. It usually takes about 10 minutes to identify those differences for specific languages. And what we're doing right now is actually we are translating those into many languages. We do have like Nordic languages, English, Spanish, and so forth, which are already set, and we know that those work. But for any other languages, it would take a little bit of discussion to set up the specific emotions. But the palette is pretty structured.
The next question is also, again, a very good one. Thank you, everyone, for writing so good questions. So in which touch point are you typically measuring feelings? And are you able to follow the emotional feedback along the survey for each customer? Okay, very good. This is a pretty straightforward answer to your question. In every touch point where we can reach to the customer is pretty much the emotion is capable of doing that. And this is one of the weakness from the more traditional KPIs is that, for example, NPS, you are not able to ask an NPS question prior to purchase, or you are actually able to, but it would be a very different result from what it means that if they're already your customer. But emotional experience can be asked because it's very directed to the fact that what you're doing at that point is that as a whole, it tells you what kind of feelings you evoke with the customer. So what you would like to do is evoke those certain feelings, same feelings prior to purchase, and then also after purchase, during the purchase and in the loyalty phase. So it is very much capable of using any touch point of the entire customer journey. And that's one of the reasons why it is very powerful. And then the continuous question was that, are you able to follow the emotional feedback along the survey for each customer? If you mean by that, that if we are able to track down the emotion of a singular person, or are we taking like a larger perspective of things? This is kind of like a technical question in a sense. I know that with feedback that we can do that, we can track like an individual person and their emotions, or even over time if we're working with Salesforce, for example, or HubSpot, or any kind of the same type of CRM. But I think that is a very essential feature of emotional experience and the emotional value index
that value is always specific to customer and specific to individual. So it is very important to be able to attach the value to a customer. So essentially, from a technical perspective, if that's what you guys meant, yes, that is very, very important to be able to do. Whatever software or whatever technology is in use for any customer experience data, it is very, very important to be able to connect that with each customer separately based on the surveys.
Value index, then is there a specific question for emotional value index, like similar to NPS, that uses the likelihood to recommend question? So does emotional value index have an equivalent question or question set?
Yeah, very good, very good. So let me just share again here. This is also on the again on the materials that I'll be sharing for everyone. So there's a setup of questions. What we usually say is that there should be 1 or 2 qualifying questions, meaning open-ended question after, and then also something specific to your business. So let's say that kind of like what is important for your strategy, there should be additional questions. So what we usually recommend is that we use a micro survey. And the question set is basically, please select the emotion that best describes your emotional state regarding, let's say, your prior purchase in our website, or the purchasing experience on our e-commerce. So that's kind of like the point that with emotional experience, you would like to kind of like target that. So every time when you use that question, you would need to understand what are you actually asking, like from which channel, from what customer. So I wouldn't go about and just saying like, okay, would you recommend us? Would you recommend us? Would you recommend us? Or please select from these smiley faces for what is your customer satisfaction. So essentially, yes, there is a question saying please select the emotion that best describes your emotional state. But also always remember that you would need to have something specific on it, meaning that you would need to target that emotion, like what is the point? Because if you're not doing that, the person might be understanding the question incorrect. And if for some other reason they're having a bad day, they don't have any way of separating that emotion from any other emotion. So that's very important to target that emotion basically to the fact of what are you trying to measure.
And that, do you do root cause analysis? That is what is behind a particular emotional reaction,
Yeah, actually, well, again, very, very, very good question for the same topic. So as I mentioned, when you're asking the emotional experience question or the EVI question, what we usually tend to recommend is that you have something specific attached to that. So let's say, for example, from a delivery part, like if you were happy with the delivery or how that went or anything like that. And then open-ended question, so you can also explain a little bit more on how that would work. So that's basically something that we always recommend. So from there, you can use the root cause analysis to track down what is actually going wrong, also on the base of text analytics, so that you can actually see that, okay, if this sparks the emotion, or if this is the emotion that was sparked from our car rental services, it might be explained by the the second question or the third question or the open-ended question, but drive the analytics from there. And then in addition, what we usually recommend and what I specifically recommend is that you also bring operational data in, which means sales data, location data, or any other data that you have, for example, in your CRM, because that is very important to be analyzed as well. So for example, high value. Like if you're buying a Ferrari, you would need to have a different kind of emotion when you're buying an Opel. I'm not saying that Opel is a bad car, but they are in a very much different category of cars. So when you sit in a Ferrari, you would need to feel differently when you're sitting in an Opel, hopefully, because you're paying much more for it. But that's pretty much the point. So short answer, yes, that is a good way to go for it.
Yeah, we start running out of time, but the last question that has been upvoted by a couple of people as well, that can you follow answers for each customer across surveys along this journey with Feedbackly? Can you follow answers for each customer across surveys along the journey with Feedbackly?
Okay, good. So basically, the question is that can we track the customer along the customer journey? So if they answered prior to purchase and then they answered post purchase. Basically, yes. If we have the sufficient data. Again, this was a little bit more Feedbackly specific answer. I'm not sure if every other CX software is capable of doing that. But basically with Feedbackly, if we have access to, for example, CRM data, that is a fairly easy thing to do, and we just inject that data back to CRM, and the vice versa. And depending, of course, if we're talking about stores, retail stores, and if there's let's say a tablet or a touch screen, then it's not possible basically because it's an offline touch point. But if everything is happening online, email, SMS, and so forth, then those are kind of like interconnected. So basically you can always track along the journey using root cause analysis, and then you can track over the lifetime or the expand of the customer, of the customer journey, basically.
Information to Salesforce, then you have it all about one customer.
Yeah, basically you can, or any other, we've done quite many, and usually those are in marketing automation software, also in HubSpot. So you could have like a timeline of for a certain customer, for example, for their unique specific emotional value index score on mapped out, for example, to HubSpot activities and life cycles. So yeah.
All right, but we have run out of time now. We have so many good questions here. We will definitely create blog articles that answer your questions that you have asked here. So please, I just suggest you follow Feedbackly in social media and sign up for our newsletter. That's the best I can say right now. We will answer your questions there as well. And otherwise, thank you so much for your time, and we will have the next webinar in April. So we hope to see you there as well, and we really hope that you enjoyed the time here with us and you found very many useful points from what Jaakko said today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.